Lovely. Let's get going. So just give yourself time to get comfortable in your chair. Thinking about your posture really as a way of both obviously getting a better posture for movement, well-being, but also as the initial focus for our attention. As always, I would say that we get more out of Tai Chi. We approach it as a moving meditation rather than an exercise. It obviously is exercise. I'm not saying that the physical aspect is at all irrelevant. It is. But as soon as we think of exercise, we sort of establish for ourselves a sense of what we're meant to be doing or experiencing. Whereas if we think of meditation, that sense of the calmness, the focusing of our attention, we'll get sort of quite naturally prioritized. And Tai Chi is very much a mind-body process. So the training takes place physically, training takes place mentally, and in a sense, you could say the intermediary between mind and body, or a large part, not the total part, but a large part of the intermediary between mind and body is the brain and nervous system, and that becomes engaged. So you want to try and have your feet down on the floor, and if you can be slightly forwards in the chair, just be aware that you might get a bit stiff in your back and be prepared to move. You're not stuck in this position. Tilting forward slightly, so just tilting your pelvis forwards, leaning forwards a little bit to get about a third of your weight in your feet, so you feel supported by your feet and your legs, as well as by your hips and buttocks in the chair. And this gives an opportunity for the upper part of your body to release some of the tightness, some of the stiffness that can build up, and a general sense of downward movement, just being aware of how gravity is working through your body and trying to find a way to allow gravity to flow downwards through your body into the ground one way or another, in much the same way as if you had sort of water somewhere building up, to try and find a way for the water to flow. So we learn to be aware of and to align ourselves with the pull of gravity, and just feeling how after a little while, particularly in your legs, if you can feel your weight in your legs, but also buttocks, hips, lower back, will respond with a sort of sense of almost pushing upwards. So we through this posture, we establish a two-way movement, a flow of movement of energy downwards with the pull of gravity, and then feeling the body's response as a kind of upward movement. Feel that your back supports the front of your body. So belly, solar plexus, chest and ribs can again release some of their tightness. They feel as though they're hanging slightly from your back and spine. This is something that I think is probably easier to feel in this posture in the chair than it is in the standing posture. And it also means that when you release that tightness in front of your body, your internal processes, all the metabolic processes like digestion and breathing, the flow of energy will be less restricted. So things like your breathing, without looking at any particular way of breathing at the moment, will just naturally balance out better. Head is supported by your shoulders and your back and your hips. Your arms currently just resting on legs. And just taking a few moments in this posture to appreciate the qualities, whatever they are, for whatever you find yourself becoming aware of, and as you said here, because these are qualities that many of which are constant all the way through the movements. And that can be quite a challenge, because it's one thing to sit and feel those qualities. It's quite another to move and maintain those qualities. So this raises the the issue of the quality of the movement that we move with, how we move. We try to move in a very soft way, as though we're moving through water, as though we're moving like water. So then, just slowly turning your head from side to side. So with that idea of moving like water, when water runs down a hill into a hollow in the ground, it fills that hollow. It doesn't immediately push hard against the boundaries of the earth. What happens is, over a period of time, it would dissolve and erode soil around it, the rock around it, and gradually that sort of puddle becomes bigger. And in the same way, as you turn your head, any of the movements that we make in any part of the body, you reach a boundary, and that's when we slow down and eventually stop and then go back the other way. Not pushing hard against that boundary, but rather letting the movement itself begin to just erode and dissolve it. And then hands in front of your shoulders and circling around. So we do that with this idea, this image of moving like water, finding the path of least resistance. We also find that, say, with this exercise, as you bring your elbows over, there's an opening in your chest, which then contracts, and then there's an opening in your back as the elbows come forwards. So we begin to realize that whatever movement we make is not restricted to a particular part of the body, going forwards. So we connect what's happening in our elbows, what's happening in our chest and upper back, and that means we begin to engage chest and upper back and whatever other parts of the body you notice in this movement, which takes some of the effort and the strain away from areas like our shoulders. Now, let your hands come down to your sides, hanging straight down from the shoulders, elbows out a little bit, fingers hanging down, just rotating. So people have been doing this for a while. You can start to bring in some of the various ways that we've used to cultivate the movement. There is no idea here that this is a passive thing. We're aware of the flow of the movement, but we want to deliberately and consciously engage with it to improve it, rather than just going with it. We do so in a way that is harmonious within our body. And then winding back. So these early exercises, as well as the benefit for the joints, as we rotate our arms, for instance, fingers, wrists, elbows, shoulders, all benefit from this gentle movement. But it also gives us a chance in a very simple way to just reflect on how we're moving, noticing areas that maybe feel a bit tight. And again, particularly those people with more experience, you may find movements, change in posture, you may find a change in image useful to try and just dissolve that blockage, that tightness, go back the other way. And we discover ways of moving that are more conducive to the flow of energy. These are all aspects of our intention. Our bodies do actually follow intention quite well. Some people would argue that everything we do is preluded by some kind of either conscious or unconscious intention. Just rest your hands. And so our bodies are well practiced at following what is essentially instructions. Now, tilt your pelvis forwards a bit more, so more of your weight goes into your feet, and then push back. As you go forwards, notice the sense of compression in the legs as though they were springs. And then there comes a point where they just push you back. So the act of allowing yourself to go forwards, yielding to the pull of gravity, increases that feeling of the movement upwards through your body until eventually it takes over. Slightly more subtly, as you go forwards, feel that your hips are hanging back. You can imagine somebody sitting behind your chair, the hand up to the back of the chair, grabbing hold of your belt as you go forwards. This means that as you go forwards, you must do this very gently, your back and your spine will extend out a little bit. And then eventually that will contract and that will help with bringing you back up. So you shouldn't need to strain in back or shoulders to come to an upright position. And so one of the things that we begin to cultivate, one of the intentions that we have, is to develop movements that reflect a kind of springy, elastic quality in the tissues of the body. And an exercise like this can also help us get a sense not just of one part of the body, but the whole body. You feel the movement right down into your toes, right up into the crown of the head. And the movement itself, again, could be said to be like water. It flows everywhere. And this is where we get a sense of the energy within the movement. Now, from the top position, turn slightly so more of your weight goes into one leg. Do you feel a difference between the leg that you're moving towards and the other leg? The leg you're moving towards is described as full. And we'll come back to this transfer of the weight when we get to the standing exercises. It's a key part of movement and it's a key element in Tai Chi. But for now, just turn in and go towards the other leg. Notice if there's any difference. You might find if you've had a problem, say, with your knee or your ankle, that you're a little bit reluctant to let the weight fully go in to it's not unusual. Once again, nothing should be forced. Now, turning in the center of your body, your hips and your pelvis, rolling the pelvis around, letting that draw your head around it. So this is another key principle that we make use of in Tai Chi and Qigong, which is the significance of the center part of the body between pelvis and waist. How, when we do this movement circling around, really we get a response to our whole body. We feel our weight moving across from foot to foot or hip to hip, forwards and backwards between hips and feet. Feel the movement in our spine, up into our shoulders, behind our head. And in a few moments, we'll be bringing the arms. Change direction. And come back to that central position, and then just raise one heel, push your foot out, put your heel down, lower your toes. Just extending your leg gently, getting a good contact with the ground. More time on this side. And then another foot. Back to the central position. So now bringing the arms back into the movement. And now a primary concern, a primary intention is to be aware of the whole body moving as one unit. You may find your attention drawn to particular parts of the body, but try not to lose that sense of the overall picture. If you do, bring yourself back to it on a regular basis. Let your hands drop down by your sides again. Once again, turn your hands palm forwards. Now, tilt forwards and rotate your arms as you did before. This is bird folds its wings. Your weight moves. Your center rotates vertically. That means that your shoulders go forwards, and because your arms are hanging down from your shoulders, your arms will go with you. Remember the water thing, moving through water, you like water. Those are how the limb system. So this is bird folds its wings. And then from the front position, leaving your hands facing palm back, come back, just letting your arms swing a little bit more than before. Coming forward, swinging through, and back. Fisherman calf the minute. So if you think about the order of the movement, I slow it down and break it down. I tilt my pelvis forward, my weight goes in more into my feet, my shoulders go forwards, my arms are left behind, and then they swing through. And then same thing, I push back and my arms forward. So if you were doing this in water, you would get that sense of your arms following the movement. Breathing just coming nice and smoothly. Do this one more time in the front position. Imagine you have a ball that your arms are resting over. And so as you come back this time, it's like you're rolling the ball in towards yourself. Just taking note of the expansion up through the belly, to the solar plexus in the chest, like a wave building up underneath your arms and just pushing them upwards. Remember that feeling of the original posture. And as you move, notice whether there are points where you lose that feeling. Maybe you've gone too far, you're straining to bring your head up. And that will sort of counter that feeling of spaciousness and openness within our posture. Now this time, as your arms come up, turn them palming, draw them back. This pigeon spreads its wings, opening in chest, sternum, and then contracting as your hands come together. Feeling your back open as though your shoulder blades are sliding away. As you come back, the front of your body expands, again, belly, solar plexus, chest, and then contraction, bringing your arms in, feeling the expansion across your neck. Almost as though your back were being very gently massaged. One more time. Hands coming in as you go forwards, directly in front of your hips. Come straight back. Elbows go out a little bit. Turn your hands palm forwards, pushing away. So that fluid, wave-like quality of movement within your body, focused from your legs, from your hips, through your back, finally expressed into your arms, palms forwards. Maybe with the image of pushing against something, pushing against water. It's called wave pushing, but you could imagine pushing into the water. This is one of the primary ways that we build up this sense of what we call inner strength, a stronger feeling, but a softer feeling at the same time. In tissues of the body, the flow of the energy. One more time. And then the hands come down to they're just above your legs. Roll your fingers into a hollow fist, a loose fist. You should be able to go down. Don't hold your fingers tight. Going forward and just rotate your arms from your shoulders to your hands as close to palm down as possible. As you come back, rotating so your hands are as close to palm as possible. Simply called plunge with both hands. But again, feel how there's a little bit of sort of contraction in your back, a little bit of opening in the front of your body, which then reverses, becomes part of that movement forwards. Still very much your weight move. If I simply move an arm without moving my weight, this is as far as my arm will move. What I don't want to do is to lock my elbow out or overextend and pull on my shoulder. If I do nothing with my arm and just move my weight, this is what happens. However, if I do both together, I can only do one arm, by the way, for the hip really. I can extend my arm a little bit as the weight pushes it forwards, pushes my hand forwards. Reverse that going back. When one part of our body is in motion, our whole body is in motion. Touch. And I think this sense of a gathering together, mind and body, is actually one of the things that leads to the cultivation of well-being. This time, from the front position, open your fingers, rotate your arms so palms of your hands are out, but winding around, almost like you're doing the breaststroke, and then press forward. Again, the weight move it, primary sort of driving move, but primary energy at this point, from hips to feet, feet to hips, always with that little moment of just settling in till you feel the push coming up through your body, rising up both directions. And then in the upper part of your body, again, the front of your body expanding outwards and then contracting. So there's a whole series of we can call them energetic movements, based on the rhythm between expansion and contraction. If you get a ball and you press a ball in, and then release it, it will expand. If you get an elastic band and extend it outwards and release it, it'll contract. Turning your hands palm down. It's called polishing the tape. Turning, easing forwards to move your arms forwards, swing across, and then come back to this. Change direction. Hands just a little bit above your hips. Again, you know, turn, go forwards, your arms extend out a little bit, not locking the elbows out, and then reverse that on way back. Now stay seated in your chair, but I'm going to stand up so you can see a bit more clearly what I want to happen in my hips. I turn, I push my hips back, I swing round, and I'll bring my hips back in. Same thing in the other direction. Now, obviously, in the chair, you don't want your hips sliding forwards and backwards, but remember, gravity is still pulling them down. What we don't want to do is to tighten up in our back, try and lift our hips. So as you go forwards with your arms and your shoulders, it's a strong feeling still of your hips being pulled back into the chair. And just come back and rest. So all the way through that first series of exercises, we're very aware of our hips sinking back, and you may well be very aware of the fact that it's not happening. We tend to tighten up, we try and lift our hips up, tighten up in lower back, and hips, and buttocks. And so we lose that sense of what we call being rooted in Tai Chi. We lose the sense of being connected to the ground. You'll find over a period of time, if you practice these arts, that sense of being rooted and the stability that comes with that definitely increases. But it's a hard habit to get out of, this sense of trying to lift ourselves up. So you could argue that every movement starts in the ground. So going to the next series of exercises, just letting your arms rest for the moment and use your feet and your hips to gently push down. If I exaggerate, you may be able to see my head coming up. There you go. I've really gone too far. I am actually straining in my back, but that's the sort of feeling that you want. A gentle expansion through your back and spine, and then through the front of your body, followed by a contraction. Feeling a bit heavier in your hips, feeling your weight drop into your feet. Upper body expanding, contracting. Expanding and contracting. And this time, turn your hands palm up as though you're cradling the ball in your arms. And as you feel your body expand, your elbows being pushed out, turn your hands over just below the height of your shoulders. Feel the contraction as though you're pushing the ball down. And expanding and contracting. This exercise is called rooting down. Rooting down is the dropping of our center of gravity, that connection to the ground. So what's going to happen here, as you turn your hands over, you sink more into your hips, gently push down and feel the movement coming up, rising up through your body and moving your hands up. And then just allowing gravity to draw everything back down into you. So it's more subtle in the chair than it is standing, but just as important to feel that sense of connection to the ground. The feet are involved as well. I described it in the hips, but really both feet and hips, once you get used to it. But the key thing is just to establish as a pattern of movement, as a way of moving, that our first act, if you like, our first intention is to make sure of that connection to the ground, that we have the root, and to move from the ground. This time, turning your hands out, fingers pointing away, and the rising movement. Still lifting your arms. This is Wild Goose. Feeling the expansion in your body rising a little bit more with that outward movement. Your arms. Once more. Now, as you drop your arms down, this time come forwards a little bit so they can swing in front of your knees, back into your hips and push up. This is parting the hands. Do the expansion, belly, solar plexus, chest, and then arms and back. Now this time, don't go forwards, let your hands drop straight down. And with the next expansion, focusing on one side, pushing your elbow up, drawing your fingers up, rotate so you're plucking something off the tree. It's called dragon plucks the stars. Your attention now moving to the opposite side. Same idea. Letting your hands. Once again, changing sides, taking your time. Do one more after this one. Now we're going to go back to moving both hands at the same time. So, bring your hands here, expanding, pushing your arms up this time a little bit above your head, so you're just pressing the ceiling up. And then down. Don't let your hands stray behind your shoulders. And then pushing out to the sides. The image of moving through water offers a degree of resistance, a type of resistance in our bodies that encourages both the flow and the development of this inner strength. And that can be a useful image to associate with the exercise. Always consider that the way that we use imagery in Tai Chi is a little bit different to how it's used in some other healing arts. I'm not saying it's necessarily better, but just this is what we do. We're not using the images to take our attention out of our body. Rather, it's the other way around. If there's a quality within the image that is presented to us, it is useful for us, one reason or another, then we try and draw those qualities into our. This time, adding two movements in the middle, Thinking again about that center part of your body where your hands are now coming to rest. And then as they push out sideways, a gentle turn, change the direction of the arms back to the front. And then turn the other way. And then pushing out. So this is now pushing in 4 directions. 1, 2, 3, 4. At this time, as you come back, extend one foot, extend your left foot out, so mirror my movements, hands palm up, fingers pointing forwards, ease forwards towards your foot, and then let the hips drop back, doing the expansion again in the front of your body, pushing you back up, pushing your arms. This is scooping the sea and looking at the hips dropping back, soften the shoulders. One more time. This time, as you drop your hands down again, roll them into a loose fist. This is grasping the tiger's ears. An upward trajectory rather than downward at the start, sinking into your hips. Feeling the movement, the energy rising up through your back. Just directing. Actually, your intention is for your arms to follow the shape of things. So, as though the shape was there in front of you and all you've got to do is trace it in. One more time. Change over, so try the same 2 exercises on the other side. Scoop in the sea, looking at the sky. And then grasping the tiger's ears. Come back to sit. Give yourself a moment in the sitting position before we stand up. Just to establish again qualities that we want to try and find in the standing exercises and in the standing postures. The actual physical form will change, but the basic principles are the same. Before we stand there, just rubbing your hands together. And then the pads of your fingers tapping over your face. Then over your head and neck. Down to one shoulder, your arm. I use the palm of my hand. You could use your fist on the other side. Upper part of your chest. then your belly, and then your legs. And then just pushing your heels up. So these exercises, these ones that we've just been doing, the tapping and this one, prepare body and mind for the act of standing. And if you've been sitting for a while, or you can even do them in bed, it's a good idea if you've got the time to make those preparations so that your body adjustment from vertical or to the vertical is smoother, more steady. Circling your knees around, bring the movement back into your hips, and then back the other way. Okay, so if you want to stand, then do so now. Or not gently. I'm going to move my chair out the way, but you might find it interesting at times to use the chair for support if you can, because some of the principles are quite hard to develop when we're standing. It's a bit more physically demanding for most people to do the exercises standing. So use whatever support, whatever means actually helps you to develop these qualities. Standing with your feet parallel out below your hips, so hip width apart, not too narrow, and just repeating an exercise that we did in the chair when we were rocking forwards and backwards. In the chair, it was from our hips, but in standing, it's from our ankles. We go forwards and backwards. If I'm standing next to the wall, just put my hand gently on the wall so that if I do go too far, I can steady myself with the wall. That makes it easier to explore this feeling and to work out how far is too far. And in general, what we're looking for is our weight to feel as though it's moving. Well, it does move into the front half of our foot and then into the back half of our foot. So not very far at all, but that movement changing the angle of the body. And see if we can find some kind of midpoint, some kind of balance point, where rather than the sense of being pulled forward slightly or backward slightly, we feel that gravity is working through our body, down through our legs, drawing our weight down into our feet, and just allow your hips to drop back and flat. So starting with a couple of the exercises that we did in chair, let your hips drop down a little bit more. Bring your hands around as though you're cradling the ball again. This time, with your hips being pushed up, your upper body expanding, like a wave again, lifting the ball and then pressing the ball down into water. Don't overdo the bending of your knees. So just as though you're just sitting, resting yourself on a wall or the edge of a table. Just drop down a little bit. And then before it becomes a strain in the legs, feel yourself being pushed up. And so focusing on that feeling of your center of gravity dropping down. And then change into the standing version of Wild Goose. And then planting the clouds. One more time. So now, changing the stance, keep the width of your step, turn one foot out a little bit, step forward with the other foot, about the same in length as it is in width, so not a long step. And just as we did in the chair, moving the weight, but now, of course, very much from foot to foot. Again, people with more experience, if you remember where you want the weight to go is important. If your weight goes too far forwards, you'll get pulled forwards, backwards, or whatever. So we want this to be a very precise action. The legs filling up. So as you go forwards, the first part of your body that you want to feel the pressure of the weight is actually the sole of your foot, not your hip or your knee. So go carefully with that, but have this intention to drop your weight into the foot as your weight moves. Just again, as in the chair, not hurrying into the next movement, given a chance to feel that compression in the leg. It begins to push back. And this is a useful thing to focus on because it helps with the movement, of course. But it will also mean that there's a restful quality begins to develop. Then sinking back and just raising your front toes, so more of your weight settles into your back foot. You have the front foot turned out a little bit. Go forwards, push the back knee forwards, so your heel comes up. So gradually more of your weight beginning to settle through each leg. Until you feel that you're able to just gently bring one foot in and then step forwards again, extending the leg, planting the foot. And then the same thing. Thinking about your posture aligned with the pull of gravity, your root giving you the stability, low center of gravity. Shake out. Now, have your other foot forwards. And same thing. Transferring your weight. This is a very good exercise to remember and to practice. Find it helps with general movement, stability. The lower your center of gravity, the more stable you are. The better in line with the pull of gravity you are as you move, the more stable you are. So it's a very simple exercise, one that's really worth practicing regularly. Helps to condition your legs. You have problems with your legs, say knees or ankles or something like that. Make sure you're not straining them. And the movement, the flow of the energy through your legs can help to ease that problem. And also strengthen the muscles of your legs, and that helps protect your joints. And then raising your toes and your heel. Stepping in. And take a few steps forwards. Just thinking about experiencing walking for its own sake. I'm going to change direction. again, that's an exercise that can be done maybe next to a wall. And it's quite interesting to do that, because what we can find is that we can find that we're maybe holding on to tightness or stiffness we didn't realize. And again, it can also help if you feel a bit unstable while you're doing this. And it's a good opportunity, as I said, just to reflect on this process. So now, have your right foot forwards, mirror my movements. Start with your weight in your back foot and go forwards, and fisherman castanet, the standing version. So now, obviously, some of our attention is going to be on our arms, but try not to lose that awareness of what's happening in the feet, your legs, and the transfer of your weight. So you're still aware of your whole body moving as one smooth unit. And that sense that the energy that comes from transfer of your weight moves your arms forward. Try on the other side. This time, as you come back, draw your hands, turn your body across, and then rise up. And as they come to shoulder height, go forwards and bring your hands down and take a step. You can do this going backwards as well, depends where you've got the space. Take the step and go forwards. Bring the foot in, just steady yourself here, and then step. And then if you feel steady enough, you might find you're able to just raise your knee up. And on the other side, it's possible. If not, just leave your toes down. Don't take silly risks, and don't compromise the flow of the movement. I'm going to change direction again now. One more time, if you haven't already finished. And just bringing your feet back. Good. Now go back to your chair. So that last exercise in particular can be quite challenging. It's hard in those circumstances to maintain that sense of the posture, the calmness, the sense of equilibrium, as we would call it in Tai Chi sometimes, a sense of your body feeling in balance. It's obviously a lot more difficult to maintain that if you're standing on one leg, or even if you're just if you're feeling a bit wobbly or something like that. So that's very common. It's quite a difficult exercise. But this last exercise that we always finish with, Embrace Tiger, Return to Mountain, really points us at the way that we can come back. What's involved in coming back to this central posture and its qualities. It's sort of exemplified by the mountain, stillness, spaciousness. Again, mountains are well rooted, I suppose you could say. These are the things that we want to cultivate within the movement of Tai Chi that are lost many times in experience. So it's not so much a case of can we maintain these all the time, but can we come back? So let your hands drop down to your sides and starting a bit like the wild goose, your arms coming up and out, feeling heavier as they come up until eventually they start to come in, holding the ball against your chest, elbows dropping down, drawing your hands in, everything just settling back down, nice and easy and gentle. And then once again, raising the tiger and feel what it is that brings you back. It's a very personal thing, I think. Could be coming back to this image of the mountain or just a memory of the feeling. Could be some kind of physical response in your body. You might find yourself quite naturally using a particular way of breathing that you begin to associate both with this exercise and with that sense of just recentering, regrounding. And just coming to rest in this position. You can close your eyes. Just aware of the quietness, the stillness, feeling of your weight bearing down through your hips, through your feet. Nice open, spacious feeling in your and just open your eyes. Thank you as always, everybody, for joining in. If you have any questions, you can always email me and I'll do my best to answer them. But at the moment, enjoy the rest of your day. Bye for now.
Thank you. Yes, bye.